Welcome to The Spotlight, the podcast where veterans and military spouses connect and share how their military experience has transformed their lives and their businesses. Here's your host, Bob Louthen.
Hey, this is your host, Bob Louthen, founder of the Veteran Crowd Network, the network that brings veterans and veteran-led businesses together with each other and the resources they need to prosper. And you are tuning into The Spotlight. Welcome, everyone. This is part 2 of our episode with Gretchen Evans. She is a Command Sergeant Major from the United States Army, one of the most decorated women in veterans in the United States. And she is certainly an inspiration to us all. Here's part 2 of our discussion with Command Sergeant Major Gretchen Evans. Would you share one, maybe, say they stuck out in your mind? I mean, can you just give us a little teaser on one maybe that sticks out?
Gosh. So yeah, this is a quick one, so we have time for this. So there was a first sergeant in my battalion when I was a battalion command sergeant major who wasn't particularly nice to his troops in a way that was unprofessional. Not just like hard on them and having strict rules, but it was unprofessional. And I heard through the grapevine that he was problematic. And so I called down and made an appointment to go down and see him. And so I was sitting outside his office. He didn't know that I was there yet. He was inside of his office, and there was a couple of chairs outside his office. And right across from me was like the orderly room where he had, some soldiers. And so he yells from his office for Private Jones and Smith to come into his office. And he used some bad words, like get the F in here. And so the troops went in there, and I guess he had, it was a dry climate where we were, and he had a humidifier in there, and he ordered the soldiers to take the humidifier and refill it with water. So I watched the two soldiers walk out to a room right directly across from me, and and they opened the door, and there was a sink in there, and they filled it halfway up with water. And then they both unbuttoned their trousers and urinated in the humidifier. Okay, and I watched this happen, and then they took it back into the first sergeant's office, and he plugs it in. Okay, this is a funny story. So then he figures out I'm sitting out there, and he invited me into his office, and I said, no, thank you. I think we'll reschedule the meeting, and you can come to my office tomorrow. How about that? Because I wasn't going to go in there with that urine being spread out there. And those troops looked at me, and I didn't say a word because I thought that guy deserved that. He really
Oh my goodness. Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did. And there's a saying, and I can't take credit for it, but there's no better example of leadership than leadership by example, Gretchen, right? Okay.
And now a word about a Veteran Crowd Spotlight sponsor. Cardomax is owned and operated by former Navy SEAL Sean Matson. Cardomax has designed just the right supplements for you and is offering Veteran Crowd an exclusive offer. Buy one, get one free on your first order. Go to cardomax.com and use promo code VETERANCROWD. That's cardomax.com, helping you achieve your max. Now back to your host, Bob Louthen.
Hey, I love that story. Now, you have also, though, been an avid hiker and a cyclist and a runner. So let's talk a little bit about your athletic feats, and then we're going to talk about Team Unbroken, because that certainly is an interesting story. And I followed your advice, and I binge watched some episodes this weekend. So I'm caught up a little bit on the world's toughest race. But talk about being a hiker, a cyclist, and a runner.
Yeah, so that's really my mental health. Okay, is that I was always active in the Army. I ran for the Army. I was a distance runner. I ran on their Army marathon team and the Army 10-miler. And I don't know, I was always pretty good. I'm small, built like a runner.
Have you met by chance Melissa Stockwell?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Okay. because she's been a guest on the program. Another amazing story. But
Yeah, great story. She has a great story, and what a great athlete.
oh yeah,
And I'm sure she's headed to Tokyo this year.
I think she's headed there soon. They actually have some preambles to the Olympics.
Yes.
But
So
back to you.
yeah, so even after my injuries, once I was healthy enough, I started back with what I knew I loved. And that's really kind of where I worked out in my mind and in my soul, where I found peace. So as I was transitioning from this military career that I loved and trying to figure out what my next, mission in life was going to be, I solved a lot of problems on 10-mile runs. And I've completed over 40 marathons, and I've done two ultra 100-milers.
Uh,
Hiking kind of fit.
you and Melissa are putting me just to shame. To shame.
So, and then hiking, I really like to do that as just a supplement to my running, to get out and slow down enough where I can watch a sunset or a sunrise. And also, it's something that I can do with my husband and my dogs. So I really like to do the hiking. We got a couple hiking trips coming up in the next couple of months. Then cycling.
Before you go to the cycling, what would a hiking trip entail? Is this like camping in the backwoods or
Yeah, so I'm gonna do the Saranac Six, which is in New York. The six peaks that are out there. Um, for me, if it's, I try to hike when the weather is not going to be awful. Okay, because I've slept a lot of time on the ground in awful weather. But I'm happy just throwing out a sleeping bag. Okay, I don't need like a roof over my head. The stars provide plenty of whatever. And I try not to, if you get rained on, you get rained on, whatever. If it's not raining, we're not training. And so, yeah, so I like to, if I can sleep on the trail, then that's what I like to do, or off the trail. I can do that. I'm also going to do the Presidential Traverse, which is in the White Mountains in New Hampshire. And there's a couple of Mount Washington and Mount Jefferson, all those peaks, which is almost like bouldering. Those are more of a climb than a hike. And then in August, I'm going to go out and do with no barriers, I'm going to go hike a 14-footer out in Colorado. I don't know which one yet, but I'll be doing that. So that, I like to do hiking. Cycling, I've switched from road biking to mountain biking, and now I have one of those crazy bikes called an elliptico. If you've seen them, it's like an elliptical machine on wheels, and that's just to take the pounding off my knees from the running. So it's kind of a cross training for me. I just got one in December, and I've fallen in love with it.
Gretchen? You're a badass, aren't you?
Well, just like you know what, I'm a better person if I exercise.
Okay, well, I still think you're a badass. I don't. I'm going to tell you.
I'm
Hey,
just nicer that way.
so not to be outdone, you decided that you guys would put together a team called Unbroken and would participate in the world's toughest race, the Eco Challenge in Fiji. Bear Grylls, television series. How did that come about? And then let's talk about what happened because I watched some of that. That's some pretty
Yeah.
rugged stuff.
So the real true story about this is that I was actually laying in the hospital after a surgery with too much free time on my hands, which is always results in really good bad ideas, as my husband says. He says you always have a million really good bad ideas, and this happened to be just one. But I received an email from a really good friend of mine, Eric Lymere, who's the first blind man who ever summited Mount Everest. And Eric and I have done some really amazing things together. He's a great adventurer. And he sent me an email and he says, "Hey, Gretchen, they're asking for teams for the Eco Challenge. I think you should take a group of veterans." I didn't even know what the Eco Challenge was. I guess, back in the 90s when they were very popular, I was in the middle of my career and I guess I just missed it. But anyway, so I got on the web page and I read just a little bit about it, and it sounded like it was something I would like to do. And I picked up the phone and I called a couple of battle buddies, and I couldn't even get the words out of my mouth. Basically, I said, "Would you like to?" And they all said yes. I said, "You might want to read about this first." But anyway, I put together a team of combat veterans and civilians who all had injuries or illnesses. And so part of the application, you have to list, like, if you have any medical conditions, okay, asthma.
You guys had all of them.
We had all of them. It was like 5 pages worth of injuries, okay, by the time the whole team wrote out theirs. And so I got a really big fat no from the race committee, race competition committee. And it was nicely written, but it was like, I think maybe you misunderstood. This is the world's toughest race. And this is elite athletes who train for years and who've been doing these races for 20 years. And we just don't think that you fit into that category. And I wrote back and said, are you disqualifying us because of our disabilities? Or is there another reason? She goes, no, it really has to do with the fact that we can't accommodate these disabilities. We've never had anybody, a whole team that has disabilities compete in this race. And I said, well, let's do something about that. Anyway, we went back and forth for a couple of weeks, and finally the race director, his name is Kevin Hodder, fabulous man. We call him Mr. Yes. But Kevin calls me and he says, Gretchen, I'm sitting here with Bear and Mark Burnett, and we want to say yes to Team Unbroken. Both Bear and Mark served in the military, and they wanted to say yes. He says, but we're terrified. And I said, what are you terrified of? And he says, we're afraid you're going to get hurt. And I said, we have already been hurt. Okay? That's the least of our worries. And I said, listen, we've all lived with these disabilities for a long time, and we're all athletes. We're, a couple are triathlons, and I'm an athlete. And I said, we know how to mitigate our disabilities around things. And I said, we're really good at this. And, we talked a little bit more about it, and finally they said yes. And off we went. We trained for 8 months and did some incredible things in training and worked out some of the difficult things. And probably the most difficult was communicating with me when I didn't have line of sight, because I lip read. But if I can't see your face, then there's no way for me to communicate easily. So we had to come up with other ways. And so if I was climbing up ascending up a mountain on a rope, and they needed me to stop, okay, how are we going to do this? So we did tugs on ropes. We also did a flashlight on the mountain, like if it was at night, three flashes, like Morse code means hold fast, 2 flashes means move forward. So we had to work out all these communication things that would help us in Fiji. So we went off to the race, and we had an incredible time. And the elite teams were so wonderful to us in a way. They would walk up to us and say, man, you guys are the epitome of what adventure racing is really all about, because adventure racing is about teamwork and strategy and overcoming obstacles that you thought you could never do. And they said, we stump our toe, we take a week off because we don't want to, re-injure ourselves, and you guys are coming in with these crazy injuries. But anyway, so I encourage people, if you haven't seen The World's Toughest Race, that it's on Amazon Prime.
It's streaming on Prime. That's right.
Yeah, to take a look and I don't know. One thing I would like to say about the team is that on our patch we have 6 dots, and 5 of the dots are filled in, and that represents each member of the team. And then the 6th dot is hollow, and that represents everybody that we raced for. And that's anybody who's ever had a life-altering injury or illness or trauma that's happened to us, which I think is probably most people. And, nobody walks on this earth for very long without something happening to them. And it's just a reminder to us that we're more than our injuries are, and we don't let those define us, or limit us to what we can accomplish. They're just speed bumps in the road, and we just have to navigate around them the best that we can. And we want to be encouragers and be an inspiration for other people to try things that maybe they would normally try.
Gretchen, I can assure you, you're an inspiration, and just real. What's next for Gretchen Evans? I mean, what does the next 12 months look like for you? I know we've got the hiking trips, but
Yeah,
is
yeah.
there another big endeavor in your future? And are you going to write a second book?
I would love to write a second book. Um, and it's there, but I don't know, for me it has to be like an epiphany, like all of a sudden I have to wake up and say, oh, okay, this is what it's going to be, and that hasn't quite happened yet. um, what's next for me is that we're hoping that once the COVID gets taken care of, that we'll be able to compete in the next World Toughest race. And in the meantime, we're still racing. Team Unbroken, we do local, I say local, we do races in the States. We have two coming up, one in Colorado and one in Maine.
How long are these races? Because the world's toughest race was 11 days.
11 days. So these are shorter races. Usually they're anywhere from 12 hours to 48 hours. So
That thing in Fiji was absurd.
it was
Going
absurd.
up a flooded river canyon, it
It
was
was
insane.
absurd. Yeah, it was absurd, but
It
it
was
was.
the world's toughest race. Do you know where they're going to do the next one?
Yes, it's going to be in Patagonia. So
Ah,
it'll be this fall, that because of the COVID, they postponed it indefinitely. So we're hoping next year, 2022, that you'll see Team Unbroken compete again. And what Mark Burnett said to me was really interesting. He said, I know you were disappointed, and I won't do a spoiler here, but I know you were disappointed that you didn't finish. Only 20% of the teams finished that race because
right.
it's arduous. He says, but from a producer's standpoint, it's the best thing that could ever happen because now I can put you back in the race, and I know this time, because you're wiser and you're more experienced, that Team Unbroken will cross the finish line. And he says, and when you do, everybody's going to stand up and say, and clap and say, "Way to go, Team Unbroken!" And he said that's what he's looking for the next race.
I I have 1,000 questions about Patagonia. I'll just ask one. So I'm assuming that that'll be a high altitude race. I mean, what's the lowest altitude that you'll be at in that race?
Yeah, I don't know what the lowest is, but I know that will be glaciers are involved. So
Oh,
we'll go there in their summertime because of the altitude. There will be glaciers and the climate. So it'll be a whole different field than Fiji was, and there'll be, of course, different challenges. I can only imagine what they'll be.
I
And
can see the excitement though in your face. I mean,
oh
you're
yeah,
looking
oh yeah,
forward to this.
yeah. We can't wait. We can't wait. We're just fingers are crossed that everything will be okay by next year, and then we can do that.
Gretchen, how do people follow you and learn more about what you're doing in Team Unbroken?
We have a Instagram page. It's Team Unbroken USA. You can follow us on Instagram. We post lots of stuff there. We do have a Facebook page. We're not as active on Facebook as we are on Instagram. We're going to have a website set up in the next month. It's not completely there yet. We weren't anticipating the notoriety, if you will, that we got from the race, but we are doing lots of speaking engagements, talking about grit and gumption and talking about overcoming your obstacles. And so we've been invited to several big companies to come in and just talk about, to help people who sometimes get stuck and coming up with your own personal mantra, 'cause that's when you reach really deep inside of yourself when you're faced with a challenge. And what is it that you tell yourself to get you past that? And how do you develop grit, and how do you develop gumption? And so we love to go and talk to organizations about this. I think everybody has a little bit of grit in them. It doesn't manifest itself as easily as you think it does. But there's ways for you to manifest that grit when you need it. And so we love to talk about that.
Gretchen, I could talk to you for hours, but our time is up. It goes by so quickly. We've been talking with Gretchen Evans. She's retired Command Sergeant Major in the best branch of the military, the United States Army. She's a avid hiker, cyclist, a runner, uh, a veteran who just is inspiring me, and I'm sure that everybody's going to love to hear what you said today. Gretchen, thank you for stepping into the spotlight.
Thank you, Bob. It was a pleasure. Have a good day, everyone.
Hey, you've been listening to the Spotlight on the Veteran Crowd Network. We're bringing veterans and military spouses who are making a difference in our community. I'm going to give a big bravo Zulu to Gretchen Evans, and that's a wrap.
Thank you for listening to Spotlight by Veteran Crowd. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information and uploads, please visit our website at veterancrowdnetwork.com. We'll see you next time.